So hello to you both.
Hello.
So if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Martin Kopsky. I'm the creative director and co-founder of Nodbrand Interactive, and we have uh, like Christopher. Is he? He's not. Okay, he's not in here. Okay, yeah. Weird start.
Don't worry, just problem.
He just muted himself.
Okay.
So yeah, and we created Acaratus basically. So yeah.
Cool. Right, I'm going to switch us over to one of the first images. We're not going to start talking about images just yet, guys. We're going to start off with Martin kind of explaining a little bit about who he is and where he's come from, and kind of bring us to that point, really, so people can kind of understand who you are as an individual within the gaming industry.
Yeah, basically, like my career started like 9 years ago, 8 years ago, sort of, as a visual effects artist for movies and commercials mostly. Movies like Hellboy 2, Ninja Assassin, 10,000 BC. Commercials, I did some Coca-Cola Zero, Stimmerol, and now I'm actually working on Lego full time while I'm working on the game, like spare time.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, it's a full-time thing, double full-time, maybe you should say. Yeah. Yeah. After that, I've been working on and off with games too. I've worked at IO Interactive on Hitman Absolution and on a small MMO called Mortal Online, which was actually developed in my hometown here in Sweden. And also a unannounced Sony project, which I cannot talk about.
Cool.
Yeah.
And obviously you are one of the main individuals of obviously this game.
Yeah, I've had this project in like a dream state for several years, and I've always wanted to do like a mech brawler sort of a thing, and I also like turn-based tactical games, so I thought that those two have never kind of been optimally made. I mean, there's Front Mission basically.
Yeah.
Not much more. And also, I love to kind of build stuff. Like Lego is kind of fun, but I thought like doing something with mechs would be even more fun, like little parts and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the idea came from. So those are two important parts that we wanted to bring in.
Awesome. So if you had to, this is a bit of a cliche thing, but I think it's a nice way for most people if they're not familiar with your project that you're working on. If you had to sum up Acaratus in just a couple of sentences, what would you sum it up as?
Acaratus, it's a turn-based tactical RPG set in a medieval steampunk world, where you build your own units basically and use them to kind of win battles basically. So you build your own war band, so to speak. And there is a storyline behind all that, but we haven't really revealed much about that yet.
But that's the game in a nutshell. It's basically a steampunk medieval. You fight with mechs.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of customization to it, and yeah. So, as like for a lot of people, I can say myself, having been a gamer for many years, steampunk is one of these things that there's not a lot about steampunk in the gaming industry in a whole sense.
Yeah.
It's growing
it's been
more
over
and more now.
Quite a while. Yeah.
It's been growing more and more recently. So I feel that it's really nice that with you guys, it's like it's a steampunk-esque sort of thing, which it kind of breaks the mold from the norm. Because when you think most people think mechs, it's like, oh, it's futuristic. You know, it's just
it's such a cliche. Like mechs, you usually think about the Japanese-style mechs with what look like a refrigerator, basically, with legs. And, well, maybe it's a bit harsh, but I kind of feel like that. And I just wanted to give it a more like form and shape to it, and give it some different materials than metal, just metal. I mean, we have some wood in it for now, but we plan to do some more interesting stuff with it. And yeah, I mean. Also, like giving it a medieval spin on it gives it a little bit more of an edge compared to other titles out there.
I think for a lot of people, like you say, they're gonna, if you say the word mech, and sort of talk about a computer game, people are going to think of, say, like the Japanese, or they're going to think of things like Mech Warrior,
Yeah.
where you're running around in these massive mechs, which are like 4 or 5 stories tall, kind of thing. It's like, and
Yeah.
this is neither of those. This is a completely different take on the thing of a mech, and I think that's one of the best things that I first sort of captured me when I first sort of talked to you about this in the past. Was it wasn't the normality of when you mentioned the word mech. I was like, what do you mean by that? Because I'm not sure. Because I've got like 2 or 3 different images in my head. Then when you explained it, I was like, I did not expect that, and I was like, that perked my interest even more. And then when we started talking to and fro a little bit here and there, and little snippets kind of came from me, I was just like, I just want to play your game. So,
yeah.
So should we jump onto the concept art that we currently have on screen? Because go
sure. Like we hired 2 concept artists actually, just to help us out with doing the cinematics and fleshing out the world and stuff like that, because I didn't have time to do both. Even though like I wanted to, but yeah, this is made by Thomas Stoop. He's doing all the cinematic work with me. I'm basically taking his work, chopping it up into pieces, and putting it back together in kind of 2.5D projection, so to speak. Yeah, I'm basically putting in some visual effects on top of it to make it look a little bit more real. Yeah. Yeah, should I talk more about that?
No, it's fine. I'm going to move on to the next image. So.
Yeah, it's just there's not much to say about that. I mean, it's quite straightforward. We get a script from our writer in Denmark who's doing the story, and we get the voice actor to do the voiceover for the cinematic, and then we cut it up and do a rough cut, and then do some more concepts. And, yeah.
I really love like voice acting aspects for games. Did it take you a while to find the right voice actor for you, or for you guys, or did you find that you had a few at your disposal that you kind of thought, okay, we like these different people, but which one do we go with?
To be honest, like we wanted to start with having voice the whole game, but that was way too expensive, and we didn't really have a big budget to go on. I mean, we're working kind of out of our pockets, and passion basically is driving the whole project. So what we did is we hired one voice actor to kind of take care of the whole like storytelling part. So he's more like a storyteller / he's a character in the game, but I'm not gonna really tell who it is.
Kind of like a narration style, or is it from the actual person's?
Yeah, it's sort of 50-50. I mean, it's written in a in a way that he's kind of telling the story, but it's kind of. Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything.
That's
I'm
cool.
really like a spoil magnet, so it should shut up. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's basically it. We found him on a voices.com, I think. It was one of those kind of voices that kind of stuck with me, and I thought like, this guy is really good, and we hired him for the trailer first, because I just wanted some kind of narration for the first prototype trailer we did, and then he just stuck with us, and he's great. I mean, he's helping us out really well. So, yeah.
Okay. We have our first question in the stream from Karen. Is the combat just between mechs, or are there non-mech characters involved in combat?
Short answer, no. And long answer, we actually had that planned, but we kind of felt it didn't really help. It didn't really make it any sense. I mean, why would you hop on a mech and fight a mech with your bare hands? You would be squished quite quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually a concept art made by Klaus Pilon. French artist. Right. He was a really great help in the beginning of the development. He unfortunately had to quit and go to China and work over there. And he's really good. He helped us kind of flesh out the look signature for the game, right, which I used on basically everything we started to build. And that's where we also went over to hand-painted textures instead of using.
I have to say the artwork, because I literally know where to go, guys. I got sent the artwork from Martin himself a little while ago, and I said I'm not going to look at anything just yet until the day we actually get set up to go. And I literally could not resist but click through some of the artwork just before we went live, and honestly, I was just like, it just makes me want to play the game more, because the artwork is just so nice. It depicts, I feel it definitely gives a feel of what the game is, without actually playing it, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of games nowadays, unless they're like picture board like pictures, you know what I mean, to give the feel of the game, they don't really get that sort of essence across properly. And with you guys, because you, like you said, you've gone that sort of like paintbrush sort of stroke texture sort of ask to it. It gives it a lot more sort of, I guess, soul in a way.
Yeah, I mean, for the company, we also go. Our goal is to kind of make everything from scratch, which kind of seems counterproductive. But in our sense, it gives the soul that it needs if you make it from scratch. I mean, the engine is made from us, and everything you see in the game is handmade. Basically, we painted by hand, like all the textures, everything is done physically, just by hand. It's not. There's basically no shading.
You've not cut any corners. You've literally decided we want to have this the way we want it, and we're not going to do it in a specific program. We're going to hand do everything, which is just, in honesty, from my point of view, that must take a hell of a long time.
It doesn't. I mean, the way we chose to work actually helps us to give to create a pipeline that actually works fairly quickly. I mean, the turnover for an asset, like for example an arm, takes about a couple of days instead of having it like weeks. Because usually when you work with games nowadays, like the AAA stuff, you create an asset, high poly asset, and then you create a lower res asset of that, and then you create a normal map on top of that, and then the conclusion map and all that stuff. All that takes time, and we just distillate everything into great model, paint model, and it's done. Except for like rigging and animation, but that's a different thing.
When you say it that way, it sounds so easy.
Yeah.
Because it's just like step 1, step 2, step 3, it's done. It's like, okay, that sounds really easy, but when it actually comes to doing, obviously this, you know how the programs work. It's obviously quite taxing, but
yeah.
Well, no, as I say, it's like the image we have on screen right now with the prison, because it says at the bottom it's concept art for prison. You know, it almost looks like Soul and Guts or something you would expect from like a sort of like a, I guess, a D&D sort of RPG, or sort of a medieval or Warhammer-esque sort of style thing. But it's still, you can see those elements of steampunk kind of coming through in it as well, which is kind of like, I guess, did you actually kind of put the steampunk sort of aspect in the foreground, or was it kind of just blended really well in? Because in some of these images you can't really notice it unless you look for it, but other ones you can kind of see it quite clearly. Was that an intentional thing?
I'm the way I'm kind of blending this stuff is like 70% medieval and then 30% steampunk. We didn't want like 50-50 because it would be kind of messy. It's a little bit cleaner in that sense. I mean, there's like elements of it, but also like it makes sense in the world. You have steampunk is just like an old thing that's been around for a while, and there's been a war because of this, and people are kind of torn about like if they should use the steam technology or not, and there's this religion kind of in the middle of it. I mean, the world is such a rich world now. It's just kind of hard to explain all at once. I mean, it's easier when we actually give you the story campaign later on. So it's.
I think that's the wonderful thing, though. It's like you've got the steampunk essence there, but it's not too overwhelming to the underlying aspects of, like, you know, the whole world is kind of more medieval-esque, but the steampunk aspect, like you say, some parts of the world are kind of embracing it, other parts are kind of turning away from it.
Exactly.
So it kind of gives you that sort of essence of it's there. You can see it if you look for it, but if you don't see it, you won't notice it, kind of thing. And I think that's one of the best ways to look at it. Because, like you say, if you did 50-50, there would be this clash of two entities, and it just would be chaotic, and everything would just look disjointed, I guess. I take it that's the kind of the approach you kind of sort of saw of it. If you did.
Yeah, basically, that's sort of what we aim for. And just keeping it simple, basically. I mean, some people really love to over-design things, and I feel the opposite is better, and just giving the touch that it needs to kind of get the feeling you're after.
Right.
This is actually one of the cinematics, one of the shots from there.
See, this just looks like it's a painting that's supposed to hang on a wall to me.
It is a painting. So,
That's the thing I love about the artwork, though. When I literally looked at literally about 10 minutes before we started the stream, was every piece of concept art you could literally happily hang on the wall as just a general picture you would hang on the wall, and I think that's rare to find when you're looking at games. I think in a lot of ways, like actually saying, yeah, I could actually just take a picture of this and just hang that on my wall, because for most games it's like you have concept art and then you have the concept art that we know today with modern day games, which is very I think disjointed, if that's the right word.
Yeah, also like I would like to point out that like working as an indie, you have a very limited amount of money and limited amount of time to kind of sit and do concept art and actually do the prep work that's needed. So I mean, what I want to just like basically a mood board of everything we're gonna work on, just to get a feeling of what we're after, and not just detail work on every single piece that's gonna be in the game. I mean, stuff like that I can work myself. So I just told the concept artist to just give me some mood I can work from, and then I'll just extrapolate from that. Basically, it's like a guideline. This is one of our banners we actually printed.
Yeah, I was going to get you to talk a little bit about this in a second, because the different sort of entities that are in there. Can I boost my mic?
Oh yeah. You lost your mic?
Apparently my mic's not quite working right.
I can hear you.
Hopefully that will kind of solve it a little bit.
Am I too loud?
It sounds fine on my end, guys. Maybe it's just me talking a little bit quieter than normal. Sorry about that. Well, hopefully we should be okay, though. I want to say I should be a little bit louder now. But yeah, if you want to talk about this image, because I know this kind of gives away aspects of what the game actually holds, this one, because you have the different entities that are kind of in it.
Yeah, well, we have like the actual characters that's going to be the central part of the story. Yeah, the mech on the bottom is basically a representation of that, but yeah, on the right you have Adina, who's actually the leader of the rebellion against Helios, who's the white-haired dude. To the left. In the back you have Acaratus, which kind of tells you a little bit about the title. Yeah, Bronomir Acaratus is his name, and it's kind of a spoiler, but not. I mean, yeah.
And he's a dwarf.
No, he's just a normal guy. I mean, this is not a fantasy world.
He just looks like a dwarf in the picture, that's all. That's why I was just asking.
Okay, yeah, but the thing is, like, this world isn't really a fantasy world. I really kind of cringe when people say, "Oh, it's a fantasy steampunk thing."
It's a medieval world with a steampunk aspect added to it.
Yes, it's basically like the real world. There's no magic, there are no fairies, there's no midgets or things like that. Just a kind of a normal world with there's happens to be like mechs in it. So.
But then I think if you look at I don't know how the mechs are kind of how they work in the game. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that without spoiling too much, or.
What do you mean, like how they work in the game?
How they run, you know?
Oh, yeah, like they have a steam core basically, so that's a power generator basically. But we never explain exactly the technology behind it. It's more like just a driving force.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you look at the Steam-esque power aspect, honestly, I feel that if you look back in sort of like our history in medieval times, it wouldn't be too far off having a steam-powered entity, because in that era of history, people, if they actually used their brain, could have done it. But we didn't do that until later. So it's not far-fetched to say that, you know, medieval world with steampunk engined things.
Yeah, it's plausible, but it's not, and it's not impossible. So yeah.
Now I love this image. I think this image is fantastic. It's just going to come up on the screen now. It's the one with the two different mechs.
Oh, it's the delayed one. Yeah, that one. Yeah, this one actually yeah, this is like the main menu basically. We have that image in the main menu. It's a image that has been kind of stuck with us for a while. Mostly because I like the composition with it.
Yeah, but the thing I like about it though is it shows you there are different looks to the entities you're going to be using in the game, rather than just like, is that based off of maybe factions you'll come across, or is it based off of like, what parts you use?
There are factions. There's also like different looks to mechs that we don't have in the actual like skirmish and multiplayer, which are like the Helia Guard, and they're like red basically. That's their color scheme. So yeah, we have different factions and different looks, but mainly you can give them different themes later on, and like, yeah, that's something we have planned later.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I mean, most of them I am trying to keep them within the different states on the map. We have like three world continents. No, not continents. It's like one continent with 3 different countries.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of categorize them within those 3. So yeah. I mean, most of the snowy parts are the Northerners, which we call Veteroth. So that's basically what they're going to be in the beginning of the game.
Okay. Okay, and MB has a question here. What did the runes on that sword say?
Oh yeah, strength and power or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It was such a long time
ago. So they
ago.
do actually say something.
Yeah, they mean something.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of take the runes and convert them to letters, they actually mean something. Yeah, because this is like one of the first swords we did long time ago. So that's why I don't remember.
This image I got quite excited about, to be honest. It's coming up on screen now, which is the cards.
Yeah.
Now, I guess this is to do with the actual battle aspect itself. Because as you mentioned before, you are a turn-based strategy game, but there is this is another entity on that, is it?
Yeah, it's not just a normal kind of tactics turn-based game. You have the card element to it, which kind of is in symbiosis with your fights and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to win fights, you should probably use cards, basically. That's what we're trying to tell everybody. But you could win without them. It's just harder. I mean, they're an aid in the fights. They're not necessarily like a have to. But
it's not a guarantee that you need to use them, but it's like it can help you get out of a sticky situation, kind of thing, or make a situation that's going well better. It's kind of like.
But we recommend them. We recommend to use them because there's no penalty not using them. So
you don't have a mechanic say, well, if you use it in this battle, you won't have it for the next one, kind of thing. It's more of a case of you can use it and it will aid you in.
I mean, it's going to be different in the single-player campaign and skirmish multiplayer, because the skirmish and multiplayer is going to be like static. Everything is going to be same for everybody.
Okay. It's just a case of building your loadout, kind of thing.
Yeah, in single-player we're planning on having like decks and stuff like that, so you can buy decks from merchants and stuff like that, and then you can unlock them and get new cards and random stuff like that. So it's yeah, it's going to be more dynamic in the single-player campaign later on.
Cool. A question from Hill. Do the runes actually mean something about the story or morals or something from the sword one earlier?
Not about the story, not really morals. It's just a kind of a shout-out, kind of, what do you call it? Like a symbolic thing, so it gives you strength, basically. This is something that they believe is helping them. You got more runes over there. I actually don't remember those either.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I think this image again, but really does show a blending of the steampunk with the non-steampunk aspect really well. Because it's like you have, I believe that's a woman. I want to say.
Yes. That's Adina, the main character.
Oh, okay, cool. And it's just that sort of blend of, even with the mech itself, just carrying that sword. Oh, Yeah.
Yeah, you've never seen that before.
I've not seen
That's
that
the
one before.
exciting part. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Some of these
also,
images, this is the first time I'm seeing them, but
yeah, these are very, very new. Like promotional art we've just pushed out basically this weekend.
yeah.
So it's gonna be fresh.
So a question from MB: does the weather affect battles? Sunny making mechs overheat, rain making it harder for ranged attacks, etc. Rust, that sort of thing, or does weather not really affect anything?
Could you say that again?
Okay,
Or
MB's asking if the weather actually affects battles, like, for instance, if it's sunny, mechs overheating, rain, rust
uh,
mechanics, or ranged
not that I
attacks.
know of. I don't think we've planned anything like that.
Okay.
Though different. I won't. Don't quote me on this, but maybe the different ground types will affect your walking ability, but it's not going to be like weather and stuff going to be affecting your mechs because they're fairly isolated. So yeah.
It's an interesting idea, though.
Yeah, I like that idea.
But obviously, as you say, like at the moment, you've not really looked into that aspect.
But then it's going to be like general for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like.
It won't really affect one team rather than the other. It's going to affect everyone the same. So it's
Yes.
not really a needed mechanic.
Exactly.
And then another question from Corin. So do you get to customize, build your own deck in the single player, or just purchase whole decks? That's a very interesting question, actually.
I mean, you get decks and stuff, but they're going to be collected. So you're not going to build your deck by buying the decks. I mean, it's a bad way of telling, bad way of choosing words. Actually, it's like you buy a pack, and that pack contains cards, and those cards are collected in your menu, and you can select which ones you want to use in battle.
So the
Basically,
ones before you go into a battle, you can say, okay, I'm using these cards from the cards.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can kind of customize each battle before you go into it with the cards you can use.
And we haven't added that yet, but I mean the plan is to kind of have it like as consumables. I can't promise anything yet right now because it's still kind of in the works. But that's sort of what we're hoping for, like consumables for at least for the cards. Yeah.
That's really reassuring that it's like you're not just confined to owning this set of cards and you can use this set or this set. You can actually kind of merge different things together to kind of, because it's like I know for most strategy games, a lot of them kind of when you find a strategy game which you can kind of really enjoy, is you can look at it and go, okay, if I want to play this style of play, I can, because I can use these aspects of the game to make that style work, and then I can go back and go, okay, I want to try a different style again and use this style.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool, that you can kind of approach the game in that way, and I think that's really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, also like for example, in the single player campaign, you will have leveling later on. We're still working on that, and with the leveling, it's gonna determine sort of what kinds of things you're gonna find on the way and stuff like that. So it's also gonna help you out. Yeah. Also another promotional art we've done.
Yeah,
I mean, most of these are actually.
This is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we're happy to show off this. I mean, as you can see, like all of this is hand painted. It's kind of taken directly out of what the game assets look like.
Yeah. And one of the things I kind of want to point out with this is the mech on the left looks very, very different to what we've just seen in other images and stuff already.
Yeah, that one is actually not in the game yet. It isn't in the game, but it's not like in the release we've just put out.
No, that's what I mean. It's like this is a whole completely different looking thing to what we've just seen. Like, we've seen swords and shields, and now we've this guy with looks like a house with 2 cannons strapped to it. It's a completely different entity, and it's like that's what I like about it. It's like just here's a curveball.
Yeah. Walking house with guns. That's exactly what we aim for.
And that's the wonderful thing here. It just looks so different. You almost just want to go, I want one of each, just so I can see what they do. But again, the artwork, I'm just blown away by the artwork. As I say, some of these is the first time I'm looking at them, and wow.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like this is another image that I've not actually seen, which I think is a really cool looking image.
Alright.
I think it's kind of like slightly different.
That's actually one of our first promotional images.
Yeah.
Which, if you look closely, like it's the right guy is actually the same one as in the menu. The one image we showed you earlier.
Yeah.
So I mean, the parts don't change that much. We
And
like fixed them a little bit, but they're basically the same now
I think
as
the
they
other
were
thing
before.
to kind of notice with this as well is this kind of gives you an insight into like some of the weapons that you can actually wield. Like you got a dual wielding sword
Yeah.
mech, then you have a two-handed axe mech, you had a sword and shield. You know, it gives you a lot of sort of like there is a lot of diversity to how you load up a mech rather than just being okay. I'm using sword and shield. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to show like in marketing. Like you can do this much with this, and it's yeah, it's a challenge we had in the beginning. Yeah.
Next question: is this a completely new thing, or kind of a Frankenstein's monster by taking things from your childhood or games and stuff? Is from a question from Hill.
Oh, it's a weird combination of influences all over the place. I mean, the closest thing for me, at least, was Front Mission in the beginning, at least. And I'm a sucker for medieval stuff. I've always liked castles and knights and all that stuff. So I mean, basically anything you can come up with, I've probably seen or heard of.
I would say this is a good point to actually for you guys to talk a little bit about your inspiration for this game.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher and I we are big fans of Heroes of Might and Magic, and that's a big influence of the gameplay and the way you play the single player campaign, basically. So that is kind of the like the thing that started the project, because we found ourselves and started to work together and kind of getting this stuff working. And yeah, I mean, and I became a real big fan of Heroes Hearthstone. I played quite a lot of that, and yeah, what a waste, but it was a good waste, I guess.
The thing is, playing that game helped you create what you've created, I would say it's definitely a good use of time.
And also, like, I'm a big fan of chess. I played a lot of chess with my grandfather when I was little, and I think that was quite a big of an influence on the way what made me like what kind of games I like. I love turn-based games. I love, like, yeah, I mean, I can just sit and ramble about what kind of games I like, but it's kind of useless.
But no, but the thing is, I think what basically comes across from that is, like, you know, you have a lot of influence from games that you played when you were younger, games that you've played recently and stuff, franchises that you've kind of been a fan of or followed, and I think that's a really nice kind of sort of. In a way, it's in a way you could kind of say it's appreciation of those titles has helped you create something of your own, to then share that and kind of break the mold at the same time. Which I think is a good way to look at it. MB said in the image before with the guy wielding two swords, is it winner that's written on the sword? Do you want me to go back to it?
Yeah, maybe it is. I think so.
Because what are the runes actually written in? What is the actual runes? Is there a name for them?
Oh, I don't remember. Like, I checked like the rune descriptions from like Swedish runes, basically. I don't know if they called anything special. I haven't done any kind of intricate detailing on why and what it is.
Is that a spider thing in the background on the image? Which it looks like it's a spider with a camera in its front, but I'm guessing that's more of a gun.
It's a part we call pelter. The thing in his front, it's just like a front cannon, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got spider legs in it. So
again, that gives you another insight into how much customization there is to look of what you can actually build as an entity, which I think is kind of cool. Because
this is kind of like
it's not just going to be two-legged, two arms kind of mechs. It's going to be four-legged things, and so there's a lot more, I guess, variety than I expected originally.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool from my point of view, because it's like you have a bit more sort of like you can kind of throw a curveball into like multiplayer games, like people thinking, okay, I've played this guy before, he's usually used these, and it's like, bam, he has something completely different on the battlefield. You know?
Yeah.
Is that kind of your
Exactly.
intention for like the multiplayer side of it? Like you have quite a diverse sort of arsenal to kind of draw from, so when you're fighting people and you come across the same people, you can kind of think, actually, I'm going to do a different lineup to catch this person off guard.
Yeah. I mean, it's been bugging me for quite a while, like not having a decent turn-based tactical kind of multiplayer game.
Right.
So we thought, like, okay, why don't we focus on that a little bit and just kind of give people that? And of course, we want the single-player campaign to be interesting and fun. But I also think, like, to make a game last longer, you should have at least some multiplayer in it that is decent.
Well, I can speak from obviously being a gamer's point of view for experience. Gaming from back in the early 90s when PC gaming kind of really took off with strategy. And I can safely say nowadays a lot of modern games kind of fail at giving you either a replayable single player experience, because I know most of the reasons why they kind of fail at that is there's not enough customization to how you approach it, or the gameplay itself was good fun, but you think, I've done it, I can move on. That's one of the major problems with most modern games, I feel, but also with multiplayer experiences. When you're looking at like multiplayer aspect of it, a lot of strategy games kind of slap it onto the last minute thing, and it's not really fine-tuned or anything, and it's kind of like it's not really done well enough to say, yeah, there's a multiplayer.
Yeah, what's nice with what we did is like the actual gameplay itself is almost the same in both single player and multiplayer. So if you're good in the single player, you're basically going to be basically almost the same in skill in multiplayer.
The only difference is the human entity of
the human aspect of it, and also like you have different cards, because we're going to give a little bit more love to the single player campaign with a little bit more interesting things. But the multiplayer is another beast in itself, because there's very big dependence on balancing. So yeah, I mean that's interesting.
Purely just an odd question, I guess, in a way. With the multiplayer side of it, is there going to be some customization to look rather than function?
Right now we don't have it, but I mean, I would love to have some customization, or at least some skins or something like that that makes
just like color changes.
Things. Yeah, that's something we want to put in.
Yeah. It would be nice to have kind of just a little something to maybe just break from just being okay, everyone looks silver or everyone looks this color.
Yeah,
because it does.
That's something we really wanted to add, but that's something we'll put in a bit later when the game is more kind of fleshed out and kind of more. Because we had some comments on how how in what's it called, like how it's represented. I mean, how you get into the game, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this image is kind of nice because we've seen obviously different entities already, and this is kind of another, I guess maybe slightly different with the look of the main body aspect. Like it kind of looks like a big helmet with arms and legs, rather than being like a full-blown body, which I think is kind of nice to sort of see. Is this mainly from the single-player aspect, or is it from?
This is single player because we have the main character beside it. Okay. That's kind of like she's the commander, so to speak. So she's giving out the orders.
So this leads me to a question that I really want to ask. This is that when you're playing the single player, I'm guessing that when you progress through it, you're going to see entities which look very different to entities you faced before because it's from a different faction, or.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, the most fighting you're gonna do against is the Helia guard, and also like the bandits and stuff like that around the map. So it's gonna be a little bit different. I mean, there's still gonna be like accumulations of different parts into one. Okay. So yeah, but you're gonna see a little bit difference there.
Okay. So now we're gonna move over to some screenshots, so people are gonna get an idea of what the game's actually gonna look like.
Oh, screens.
So, would you like to explain a little bit about what we're seeing on screen in a second when it pops up? Because for me, this looks kind of cool, but I'm not sure if I fully understand the aspect of mechs wielding what they're wielding.
I don't see the picture.
It should come up in a second.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that's yeah. They're holding shields.
Okay.
The ones closest to us, so they're in guard stance, taking the blow basically. So when going into guard stance, I don't know the technical kind of bits of it, like stats, but it reduces your damage and stuff like that. So
Right.
makes it easier. Yeah, and the other ones are basically attackers.
Okay. So this kind of shows the difference between like you can play a defensive game and you can play an offensive game.
Yeah,
I guess that's.
and
that's
the attacker is dashing towards you, so he also makes damage on impact.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more customization to kind of how you go in, because you can do those aspects where dashing can actually benefit you, whereas being defensive can benefit you depending on what you're facing. So I guess it teaches you more about the elements of what you're facing and thinking, okay, these guys are really highly aggressive. If I play more of a defensive build, I'm going to hold longer before I maybe lose something. A question from Corin: what determines how many mechs you can bring per battle?
Oh, per battle? I mean, you have a loadout in the bottom of the screen, and we can actually tell that when we start going through the game.
Right.
It's kind of easier to show and talk about it than just telling about it.
That's fine. Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of stuff when we actually go into the gameplay aspect, guys.
I think everybody's eager to see what it is. Because it seems like pictures all the time.
But the thing is, from my point of view, I wanted to go through like the stills and stuff for everyone, so they can kind of see like the artwork and kind of like some of the stills from the actual game itself. And then when we get into gameplay, people will be like, yes, that's the fun part. But we get to see some of the aspects of what you guys have created before we get to that, which is kind of like a nice sort of flow from the beginning of the project through into.
Yes.
So it's like this is quite a nice image as well, kind of showing you like the card use on this next one.
Yeah, my Twitch is kind of weird.
It's delay.
Oh, yeah. The delay.
Because I think in this on this image, when it comes up for you, it shows like the hit points. I'm guessing, maybe. I'm not sure. There's numbers and little pips. I'm guessing that's to do with hit points. You'll be able to tell me.
Oh, hit points. I don't see it yet.
Damn Twitch.
Is it that delayed?
It shouldn't be. I have the reduced delay on. There we go.
Oh, there we see it. Yeah, he's using dash and what numbers are you talking about?
The little numbers in blue and red, and then you got little pips next to them.
Oh yeah, those are stacked numbers. Like if you played Hearthstone, Heroes of Might and Magic, I'm combining those. They also have like stacks. You can like it determines the strength of your unit and how many lives you basically have. So if that number turns to 0, you're dead, or that unit is dead basically. And the little green dots are action points. So if you don't have any actions, you don't do anything, basically.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna keep a question back until we get into the actual gameplay portion, because I think it would make more sense doing it one way.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's easier to show.
Yeah.
Photos.
This is just stills of the game, guys. This is actually.
Everybody thinks it's gameplay. So I know it's frozen.
The gameplay portion comes in a little bit, guys. We're nearly there. I think we've only got a few more images to go through. So one of the things I like about this image that's coming up in a second is it shows there is a mech that actually takes up more than one square.
Yeah, we actually see him in this image too. It's the big house, basically.
Okay, so
he's taking up 4.
One of the quick questions I want to ask is, obviously, does that affect you as a player if you choose to use a bigger mech, or does that affect you in some way with like other mechs that you can use, or?
I mean, it's taking up more space, so it's harder for you to kind of traverse the battlefield. So I mean, if you're bigger, you don't walk as far,
you don't fit through gaps.
Yeah, and you don't fit through some of them. I mean, we're trying to make the levels fairly simple and not too convoluted with small tunnels and stuff. I mean, if you played like Space Hulk, they have tunnels, and we're not really doing that. We're trying to make building, like levels so simple as possible, and then with cards you can actually alter the dimensions on the the battlefield. Hopefully, we'll add a card that I really want in. Is that you can place cover in parts of the map.
Okay.
So you can actually put up a one square of cover that folds up as a little plank thing.
Mhm.
So
you can
the player
give yourself a more defensive point to kind of sort of channel them through, kind of thing.
kind of like a block, basically. Yeah.
So before we go to the question that's popped up in chat, I want to ask a question about obviously this big house guy. I mean, he's holding a rather large, what looks like a cannon. Now, that I don't know if that's a gun or a rather large bludgeoning weapon. It could be either right now.
It's a large cannon.
Okay, cool. Is
Green, copper.
Okay,
no,
so
iron.
to ask a follow-up question to that, is it actually possible for those that are possibly just carrying a ranged weapon to still melee?
Yeah, I mean, if you attach something that has an action for close quarters, then you can do that. I mean,
So it's
when you
based
see
off
how
of the attachments rather than...
yeah, I mean, you can build whatever you want. That's where what we want to do with the build menu, where you actually build it in segments. Like you have modular attachments. So you start with the core. The core decides how many slots you have available, and it has like core stats for the whole unit. And then depending on what extra attachments you add, it gives you boosts and stuff like that, and also different actions.
Am I guessing that maybe sometimes when you say apply a certain thing, it will give you the ability to move a little bit further, or some things will give you the ability to do more damage with melees, etc., etc. It's kind of stuff like...
It'll be more clear when we actually show the game, because it's hard to explain.
So question from Corin in chat here. Will there be a custom map/campaign editor, like you'd see in a lot of games like Heroes of Might and Magic, etc.?
Not that I know of. That's something Daniel or Christopher has to answer. I'm not sure about that yet.
Okay.
I can't promise anything, basically.
If we remember that one, then when one of those two are available, we can get them to answer that.
Yeah.
A question from MB: can you use that cover so you block yourself in with a ranged unit so they can't get a hit on melee on you? Which is the deployable cover you were talking about earlier. If you can actually deploy a piece of a cover entity.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said, didn't I?
Well, you said you were hoping to put something in that you could deploy cover as a but could you then use that cover as a ranged unit to deny the enemy a melee attack on you, but still fire at them?
No, what we are planning on is adding that you can place a cover next to your unit. Yeah, that's kind of because you can't put a cover anywhere on the map, because that would kind of be a negative for everybody. Like it's not fair, basically. That's what we
want to keep it as fair as possible, giving you the ability to boost your immediate position rather than affect the flow of the battle kind of too much. Because it still affects the flow of the battle. It's just more of a case of you're doing it as a defensive thing rather than a hindrance. Which in turn effectively can hinder you at the same time. But does obviously having a cover entity in front of you deny the ability to the enemy to melee you? Because they can't hit you through the cover, or is it based off of the angle?
It's gonna be. It's basically gonna create cover for you. So yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm really enjoying these images, to be honest, because it's like some of them just look so good, and then other ones are just like, I want to know what everything is on the screen. It's like this one. This is another image, obviously, the castle house thing.
You like to tease yourself, don't you?
Yes, I do.
It's kind of dangerous doing that, because you're creating really high expectations for yourself.
No, I'm pretty level-headed on the expectations. I'm more of a case of I'm just really enjoying the visualization. The visualization of this is really. I never expected the visualization of your game to be what it is, and that's makes me appreciate it a lot more. Because when we first talked about it, you sort of talking about how early on stages you were, and then seeing these images is just like...
Yeah. I mean, it's been it's been riding along quite well, like the last couple of months. So I'm really happy how far we have gone for such a short period of time. It's been taking quite a long time, mostly because we wanted the game to be stable and not crash all the time, and not to have any like major bugs going on. I mean, it's not buggy. It's running fine. The only thing that is missing is the actual kind of content we actually have created. It just needs a little bit of polish and rework on some parts.
And adjusting and whatnot before it's ready to be actually let loose.
Yeah. That's why we're in early access, because it's nice to have this feedback from people who actually play the game and stuff like that. I mean, we've been playing this game forever.
We have a follow-up question from MB. Can you later destroy the cover that you actually placed?
Yes.
You can.
Or that's the plan, basically.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so as one of your guys has actually replied to Corin's question about the map campaign thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So again, this is a very different entity of a mech coming up on screen in a second when it switches. Talk's seen already, so it's like another weapon type, another kind of style of mech already. It's like just there's so much difference in there. I was expecting like maybe one or two different looks and a few different weapons, but there's a lot more than that already. And I'm guessing you guys possibly may be expanding on that as you go forward, like the diversity of weapons and stuff you can kind of. I don't want to use the word like just kind of like plop on a unit, but give a unit is probably the better way of putting it. So you can kind of there is definitely a lot of customization to what you can do rather than just forced into like a pigeonhole.
Yeah, I don't see the image yet. I just see the blue one with the cards.
Should be changing in a second. You might have to pause play. It might just be Twitch being a bit buggy today.
Oh yeah, probably. That okay. Yeah, now I see it.
Because this image I like a lot as well, because it shows a lot of information about the game. This one.
Yes.
Which.
Yeah, the one on top is like the builds you create. That's kind of like what you create is what you have up there. So you can click them and check them out, and then on the bottom there you have your actual loadout. So you just drag and drop them into that loadout to create your little warband, and then you have your portrait in the middle. So it's that's the one. That's the class menu. If you click that, you get the class menu. So you'll know more about the classes once you're in there and hover above them. And
I'm going to ask a question here. I don't know if it's going to apply to single player or multiplayer or both. Hopefully you can answer that in both ways. When you actually create a loadout for a mech, can you save that loadout?
The loadout is saved automatically once you've created it, but and it's both for single player and the skirmish. They're separate, so
you can
the one you have.
So what I'm kind of saying, getting to here is, if like for the skirmish aspect, I could load into it and go, okay, I want to like create a lot of different things and have them all saved. Then when I want to basically field something, I can go, okay, I want this and that and this and that, and I'm going to worry about creating them again. Is that basically what you can do, or?
I mean, they're separate entities. The campaign it's by itself because it's going to have a little bit different stats and different parts to it. And the single like skirmish and multiplayer is gonna have a shared loadout. So if you create one in your skirmish, you can put it into the online version and play it there. So basically, you can test your build against AI and stuff, and then use that online if you feel like trying it out. Yeah.
Cool. So the image we have coming up in just a second is obviously a combat image. I'm trying to understand why the floor's opened.
That's just because cover. That's the only reason. If you stand there behind it, it gives you cover.
Oh, okay.
Those blue squares are like indicators for cover. We're gonna make it a little bit more like clear that it's a cover square. Right now it's kind of
similar
unclear.
To like the XCOM series do, but they kind of give you.
I would like that. Yeah, I would like that because it's quite easy to see. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So you definitely want to have a better depiction of what it's actually doing. But
Yes, yes.
no, it's just curious. That was because I was like, I saw it in another image, and I was like, I meant to ask, and I was like, we kind of got, I carried on with the stuff, so I saw I come back to it quickly and say, what does that mean?
Yeah, and also like the darker hue of red, the squares,
Mhm.
they're indicators of how far the other guy can go.
That's very similaristic to the Heroes of Might and Magic series. Like when you hover over an enemy unit, you can see how far it can move,
Yes.
which is very, very handy. So it kind of helps with the tactics and planning of your
Yes.
turn.
Yes.
Which leads me to another quick query. Obviously, this is a turn-based game. Are you going to have like multiplayer where you actually have timed turns, or is it going to be
Yes.
our
This
time?
game is timed. Right now we have 60 seconds for
Okay.
each turn, and it sounds like a lot for some, and sounds like very little for some. So we added a couple of options to change the time for like you can change it to 999, and you have all the time in the world to do your turn.
I like that there is some customization there. I definitely like that because for some players they say what they want to take a nice slow game and be very
Yeah,
methodical.
I understand
and
that.
other players want to actually obviously like kind of just get in and
And,
fight to the death
and that's nice
fast.
for multiplayer. I mean, some people like to play together fast
Yeah.
and keep it intense, and some players just take it easy, like have a tea and discuss politics while they do their turns. I don't know, like people can decide themselves.
This is a really nice question actually coming up from Karin. Is there line of sight in the game? Or is that
Yes.
something you mostly don't have to worry about?
If you're behind a pillar, you can't shoot behind the pillar. Or you can't shoot through the pillar, basically. That's kind of what we're aiming for. So there is, I mean, if you're hiding behind something, then they can't shoot behind that. Or at least they give you some percentage. I think it's like maximum 75 cover or something like that.
So
75%.
it affects
But
a
that's
lot.
something Daniel knows more about. I'm not really that into how much stuff
Okay, well,
takes
if
at
he
the moment.
can answer that question a bit better, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we can put him in later when
Yeah.
we're actually in the game.
Okay, so this next image that's coming up is obviously kind of like the loadout we had earlier, where you had the images of the mechs above and below. But it has obviously a little bit more information here. You have a different entity kind of coming up through the center.
Yeah, this is the class menu. We haven't really that it's a class menu, which we should.
How do
But
the
yeah,
classes
that one.
affect play?
Yeah, the classes affect several things. Most notably are the command points. So if you choose knight, for example, you get less command points. I think we're changing this constantly, so it's still kind of in the works.
So the amount of command points you get is affected by the command, the entity you're using.
Yeah, and the command points are used for the cards. So that's like the amount of card points is determined on the middle of the card. It says how much it costs. So yeah, you'll see later. I mean, it's like Hearthstone, where you have the different kind of gems and stuff like that. So and also it determines your loadout, like how powerful it is and how many units you have. So depending on now we have, for example, knight selected. Then you have more slots available, and it's more like an average army. And then
can lead to things like you want to face an opponent who has like more units with a lesser unit type. So you could then do like two different classes kind of fending off against each other based off of that sort of setup if you want to and stuff like that. So it's
you can, for example, choose scout and be more like intense with a smaller group. You don't have to do as much micromanagement. Instead of having like knight, you have 6 characters you have to take care of, and imagine that during 60 seconds you have quite a lot to keep track of. But I mean, it depends.
I know there are going to be a lot of questions I'm going to leave until we actually get into doing some gameplay, because I think it's better to explain them there rather than ask them now, because I think it's just going to...
It's much more fun.
Yeah. I actually don't know how many images we actually have left here, so I think we're just going to scroll through these relatively quickly.
I think there's quite a lot.
I don't know how many we've gone through, so... If you see anything that kind of pops out at you, take a moment to talk or whatever, and then we're... otherwise, I'll probably scroll through these a little bit quicker.
Yeah, this is just a catapult, kind of shooting at one. It kind of makes what's it called? Area of effect damage.
So there is
it's not just
area effect as well as single target damaging.
Yes.
Is that both
That's what.
for ranged and melee?
What do you mean?
Is there some melee attacks that do area effect?
Not at the moment, but
Okay.
maybe later.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just curious, because obviously having ranged area effects makes sense, but sometimes melee area effects
Yeah, I know.
can be
I
quite
would love
nice.
to have like a Warhammer doing a slam and stuff like that, but
I'm thinking more like a whirlwind attack from like a big axe word or a big two-handed sword word, like spinning around in a circle and doing
Yeah.
like an air effect sort of thing. Yeah, so little things like that. It kind of like gives you a bit more sort of versatility to how you want to approach certain situations. Now this
yes.
one is kind of showing off how you build a mech.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
Daniel says, Martin, yes, there are AoE attacks. So
Oh,
yeah,
there are any. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, man.
I missed that.
So, but yeah, this gives people a kind of an idea of actually how you build a mech. Like, you know, there's parts, and it tells you on the left there, like, you know, this gives you this benefit. This is with weight sort of thing. So I'm guessing weight affects a lot of things in this game when you're building a mech. So depending on how much it weighs, depending on.
I think it's better if we take that in the game, and then
fine.
Daniel can explain it a little bit better.
That's great.
I'm just afraid of saying wrong things all the time.
So yeah, this is. So this is kind of another one which kind of just shows you different aspects of like the actual combat itself.
Yeah. It's kind of how it looks. I mean, we have backstab in the game, so you can just run up against someone behind and stab them in the back. It gives more damage.
Is that every unit that has a melee attack can do backstab, or is it certain units depending on their loadout?
There are certain things you can do to help that, and some things you can actually do to reduce the actual backstab damage and stuff like that. So, but that's also like stats stuff that Daniel is more keen on explaining.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry if I barge in.
No, go for it, man. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm Daniel. I'm here mostly because Christopher is slightly away right now.
Slightly?
I don't know. He's not at the computer.
Yeah. Well, go for it.
Yeah. So I'm responsible for game balance and some of the gameplay design. And I recently joined this development, so but I hopefully I can answer some questions if you have any.
That's awesome, man. I think we're probably going to keep you definitely about for when we actually go with the gameplay, because then I think you're going to be talking a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Because as I say, from my point of view, I'm going to probably ask certain questions based off of like what you can and can't do, you know, things like that. So it kind of makes more sense for people that are kind of watching, and obviously I think a lot of people in the chat room are going to have a lot of questions when we get to the gameplay side of it. So if you have anything you feel needs to be said now, dude, feel free to obviously talk, but based off what we've covered already, so
I will wait.
I think it's easier if we just get into the actual gameplay, and then we can
I was
show
going
you.
to say we'll do the one of the video clips. We've got the two quick video clips we're going to play, guys. So we're going to be quiet now on Discord and let you guys enjoy some video clips. So enjoy the two video clips, and then we go back to some gameplay.
a decade ago, the known world ripped itself apart during the Valyrian conflict. The war left a scar that has not yet healed. Following the war, Helios crowned himself emperor. It was the battlesuits that secured him victory, and they are still in service, utilized by the Helia Guard to keep what is left of the peace. After his crowning, Helios signed the Unity Act, which made it punishable by death for mere citizens to own a battlesuit. A few nobles and merchants went against Helios' demand. Adina Colora, slave dealer from Thrillid, kept one hidden as a precaution. Helios believed in the power of his machines. Thus, the religion of Mechanica arose, supported by funds from his empire. The Church of Manju, on the other hand, were first frowned upon, and then condemned, and finally, the Helia Guard cleaned up the streets. Ruthless slave dealers rose to great wealth. Slave dealers like Adina Colora, for whom nothing was sacred. But Adina was betrayed by one of her own slaves, Bolt. In exchange for his freedom, Bolt alerted the Helia Guard of Adina's battlesuit. But the Helia Guard were not to be trusted. The general gave the order to eliminate everyone. But then, something happened that no one could have foreseen. Bolt saved Adina's life. In order to survive, the slave dealer and the slave began to work together.